Hello, Blazer fans, Blazers Edge readers. Welcome back to the Blazers Edge Videocast. I'm Sam Tung along with Dave Deckard. We weren't able to do our recap of Game 3, but boy, now a whole slew of topics to talk about, Dave, between both Game 3 and Game 4. Both of them nail biters. Both of them could have gone either way. We have a number of topics to get to about both of these games, but the first thing I want to ask you, Dave, is this, and I know you've been a basketball fan for a long time, is this the most competitive playoff series you have seen in your career as a basketball observer?
I'm not sure I'd term it the most competitive. It's the closest. It's the craziest. It's hard to compare this to some of the great final series and an ultra-high level of basketball for both teams where it's a nail-biter in the sense of that both teams are trying to take it and neither one quite can, and it's like a wrestling match between the two. This is more like a wrestling in butter where nobody can quite grab it, and every team that seems to get it, every time a team seems to get it, it slips out of their fingers and the other team advances. So it's competitive in terms of crazy, close, intense, heart attack inducing, yes. Competitive in terms of an ultra high level of basketball, not as much, but who cares? I mean, the Blazers are acquitting themselves quite well, and by the way, they have shown themselves to be the team that is going to take advantage when Houston makes a mistake, far more than the Rockets have taken advantage when the Blazers have made mistakes, and that is a great place to be, and that's what's turning this series. So competitive or close or whatever you want to call it, this is a great series for the Trail Blazers.
So you're saying more the entertainment value is greater than maybe we've seen in a while. I mean, I don't think there are many people that can argue with that.
As a Blazers fan, yeah. If I were a Rockets fan, I might not be quite so entertained right now. But boy, if you root for the Blazers or just generally like to watch the NBA, this is pretty cool. It's like seeing a couple of kids kind of go at it in a rough and tumble, obviously sanctioned and legal match, where they don't quite know what they're doing, but their enthusiasm is infectious, and we're all getting infected by that, and it's wonderful to watch.
I actually want to start the videocast, Dave, talking about the Rockets and not the Trailblazers, because I actually think that this might be the biggest storyline that's helping the Trailblazers go up 3-1 in this series. And I think that really that overtime period in Game 4 was probably the microcosm of this. And I'm talking about the relationship between James Harden and Dwight Howard. And it really seemed like between the end of the fourth quarter and the end of overtime, it was the job of the Rockets to feed the beast. They were giving the ball to Dwight Howard, and he was going to go one-on-one, and that's exactly how the Blazers played him, was one-on-one in overtime. Yet, when the Rockets were down by a couple of points, and you really need a guy that can create his own shot, and that is James Harden, he seemed disengaged. He seemed rusty. He seemed cold. I don't know what the verb or the adjective that you want to use to describe it, but talk a little bit about this relationship between Dwight Howard and James Harden, because I really think that if those two are clicking like we saw in Game 3 when they were playing that pick and roll and they were basically unstoppable, the fact that they have not coexisted throughout the entirety of this series, I think, is such a huge advantage to the Trailblazers, to the point where that might be the reason that they're winning this series 3-1.
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge you have to mention, and give some credit to the Blazer wings, otherwise we're going to get in trouble. The Blazers have defended. The Blazers have put pressure on that Rockets duo very well, which is exactly what they needed to do. And that's the secret here, is that I think the Blazers probably saw, even though Portland got their clocks clean in the regular season, I imagine they saw those cracks. We saw Dwight Howard disengage a little bit in a couple games in the regular season when Harden was excelling, yes? Now Howard is pretty much excelling, and now Harden is disengaging. And part of it is effort. I mean, it's not just that he's a bad defender. He's actually done well when he's into it, or well enough. But there are a couple plays where he just quit, for instance, in Game 4. In transition, there's one memorable play late where he was in transition defense and just kind of stopped and let the guy run right by him. It's an overtime game. The games hinge on one or two plays, and you quit on one of them. How can you justify that? Obviously, Harden's sense of spacing, which we have talked about ad nauseum on the site, is mind-bogglingly bad. I mean, it is awful. He is destroying his team with his space-making decisions. His decisions with the ball haven't been much better when the pressure is on. He passes up. Last night, or in Game 4, he passed up like 3 good shots to get a bad one. He'll beat his defender and then retreat back out and then let the defender reset. What is going on with this guy? So mentally, emotionally, he is just disengaged. And he may be physically tired too. I don't know. That may be part of it. But, man, he is hurting his team. And you're right now, Harden and Howard are kind of like oil and water during the crucial times of this game. It's either or when the Rockets need both.
Right now, Dave, the other one of, obviously Harden has been a fairly polarizing figure, especially because, he can be so tremendous. Yet, when he's bad, he is bad. And another guy, kind of, a guy that obviously isn't at the same talent level right now, but the Trailblazer version of that right now, Dave, is Mo Williams. And there have been some moments, and I've been on social media just like you and probably a lot of people watching this video, where there have been some times when people are scratching their head and thinking, what the heck is he thinking? Yet, at the end of Game 4, if he doesn't hit a tremendous three, first off, if he doesn't save the basketball inbounds, which you can, regardless if you were inbounds or out of bounds, he saved that basketball. And if he doesn't hit that three, that game does not end up in the Trailblazers' favor. So talk a little bit about, your experience as a viewer and as an analyst watching Mo Williams and kind of this hot and cold attitude that everyone's had towards him, where some days you think the team would just be blowing the opponent out if it weren't for Mo Williams, yet without him they probably wouldn't be in this position. And I should also add, Dave, that includes not only on the court but also off the court and the type of impact that he's had for this team. Yeah,
I mean, you said it all there. I mean, it's love-hate relationship with Williams, depending on whether the ball is going in. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the key thing helping the Blazers, as it has all season, is that, as you say, even when the ball doesn't go in for most of the game, there's always a moment where you love Mo. I mean, very few games have you just said, that was horrible from Mo to top to bottom. I wish he had never seen the court. Occasionally, not very much. Usually his bad games are like, he was 3 for 11, but that 3 saved Portland's bacon because nobody else was taking that shot, and he did. So in the balance, you've got to appreciate what Mo gives. It's like you're dating him. I mean, come on, you're like 16, you're dating him. You don't have to want to marry the guy, okay? You just kind of see the good in him and have some fun while it lasts, and take it for what it's worth, a learning experience, and have those good times and good memories. When it's over, you won't necessarily cry, but you really appreciate the chance to have fun now. And Mo is doing exactly that for the Blazers. Hey, he can take me to prom. It's okay. I'll go with him. I ain't going to put a ring on that finger, but you want to dance this year, Mo? Let's dance, because we got a lot of playoff games left, apparently, and we're going to need him.
And let's be honest, Dave, I mean, the dude is the best dressed on the team, and he is not afraid to tell anyone about it. Let's talk a little bit about, you had mentioned the perimeter defense and the importance of the way that the Trailblazers are playing defense against James Harden. I was not going to go this entire videocast. I know you might have been afraid I was going to, but I was not going to go the entire videocast without talking about Wes Matthews and the type of series that he has had playing James Harden. He's picked up some fouls, obviously, but that's going to happen when you play Harden. But it just seems like the type of defender that Wesley is, a guy that likes to play physical, a guy that has a chip on his shoulder, a guy that likes to get up in your grill and really make you uncomfortable. It seems like that style of defense, Dave, has been more than adequate in trying to defend James Harden. And let's be honest, the James Harden in this series is not the James Harden that played this season. And I think a lot of it, and I think you'll likely agree, or at least from what I have seen from a lot of analysts around this series, a lot of it has to do with the way that Wes Matthews is playing individual defense against James Harden.
Absolutely. And Harden is pitching the ball right into Matthews' wheelhouse. He's standing still on the dribble. He's not really going anywhere off of screens. When the Rockets set a screen for him, it's patently to get the switch, not so Harden can get free. He'll go 2 dribbles past the screen and stop dead and wait for his man to catch up to him, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of screening, if you ask me. But hey, I'm not Kevin McHale. You have Harden not dribble driving, and Harden isn't the quickest guy in the world, but he can get past Matthews. But he's not making Matthews move laterally. He's just staring Matthews right in the face and saying, here I come. I'm going to take step 1, step 2, step 3. I hope you'll be there. And Matthews is. And Matthews, with his strength, with his intensity, with his arms poking in there, and with his attitude, is just giving Harden fits. And, part of it, too, we need to understand Harden's teammates are not spacing for him well. Again, we have the water of Dwight Howard coming in, messing up the drive of the oily James Harden. Harden wants to create a lane. Howard moves into it and brings a defender. So now Harden, when he does get to the rack, is facing 2 or 3 Blazers, including some big ones who can block his shot, instead of just getting past Matthews and then collecting a foul off of someone coming to help. So, it's a combination. Matthews is playing very, very, very well. Harden is letting Matthews play very, very, very well by not testing his defense, and it is something that I will not understand. I mean, this is just wrong with a capital R, what the Rockets are doing right now, and I don't see how they don't see it. The only alternative I can come up with in my mind is that a couple of these players just don't care. They just want to get theirs, and as long as they get theirs, it's a good game, and they think that'll automatically translate into a win. When they're not getting theirs, they're just not playing well, and that's not going to win playoff basketball. You are done if you have that attitude.
Ironically, Dave, James Harden and Dwight Howard are normally the 1-2 in this lineup. You could almost make an argument, and it might sound a little crazy, but you can almost make the argument that Troy Daniels has been more important in this series than James Harden has. I guess maybe that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I haven't seen Troy Daniels make a negative play in this entire series. All he's done is hit threes, draw fouls. He's done everything they've asked him to do, and it seems like he is one of the few guys that has really kind of stayed the course on this thing. As you said, he's not there to get his. The kid just wants to win. You can tell that when he gets the ball, he's not hucking it up there because he wants to get a couple more points. He hasn't taken a bad shot all series, and it just kind of goes to show just this juxtaposition between these two guys.
Mm-hmm. A couple times Daniels has been on the wrong side of the set on offense. It's pretty funny to watch him because his teammates won't really correct him either, because the Rockets' offense is so wacky that they're like, oh, I guess this is what we're running now. But other than that, you're right. Daniels, when the pressure is on, Daniels has been so much greater than Harden that it isn't even funny. And that shouldn't happen. And the way I think of it internally, mentally, Daniels doesn't deserve to be on this Houston Rockets team. Not because the way everybody thinks he used to be a D-leaguer. I mean, he doesn't deserve to be among teammates who are doing that, because he is rising above the fray and the muck. And I think there's a pretty bright dividing line down this team right now. You have Dwight Howard, who is acquitting himself fairly well and really taking advantage of his strengths. Patrick Beverley has been up and down, but he is playing his heart out. Daniels has been Mr. Clutch and Mr. I'm going to do whatever I can to help this team to win, and not even think about it, I'm just going to do it. You have those three. On the other side, you have Harden. You have Jeremy Lin, who's been like baby Harden, over dribbling, turning over the ball, messing up the spacing, just not playing great defense usually either. And then you have Chandler Parsons, who has sort of towed the line, but Parsons hasn't had a really great series, even in the games where he scored well. It's like there's something not quite right with his head sometimes as well. And I think you saw it most clearly in that flagrant foul on Aldridge in overtime in Game 4. He could have just come across the arms. I mean, he did not have to come down on the head. He clearly did not even go for the ball. I do not know what he was thinking there on the first play of overtime in a game you have to win. So you have the three guys who are trying hard and succeeding somewhat, and just the three stooges over here. And the Blazers are driving right down the middle of that huge crack in Houston's lineup. And it's not even funny. I mean, it looks like a one-point game or a two-point game, but really you can see it coming from a mile off. You can see Houston crumble right before your eyes, and you're going, they got a 10-point lead now, but they are not going to win this game.
Well, we saved the best for last, Dave, and that is LaMarcus Aldridge, and a difficult Game 3 for him, scoring the basketball, but rebounded well in Game 4. I wanted to ask you, kind of a more contextual question about LaMarcus, because so much has been talked about, the X's and O's and the way that he has been successful. I wanted to ask you, when the last time you saw a guy, a trailblazer, I should say, dominate a basketball game even when he wasn't shooting the ball? Because it seems like he gets the ball at the elbow and Dwight Howard has to guard him, and all of a sudden Houston's defense is just all out of whack. And it just seems like the impact that Aldridge is having, when they need a big bucket, they usually get it from him. But it just seems like the whole package that he's giving them right now, and the fact that when he is on the floor, so much attention has to be paid to him. When was the last time you saw something like that?
I think you have to go back to Rasheed Wallace, Brian Grant, maybe. Grant, certainly in some series versus Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz, had a huge effect without necessarily being the hub of the offense. The comparison isn't as apt because LaMarcus is a number one option. Grant was a rebounder, blue-collar guy. However, Wallace is a pretty fair comparison in that he did not always dominate the ball, but every time he touched it, his ability to score or pass created chaos among the defense, and he stepped it up in the playoffs. Whatever you remember of Sheed, remember this. He carried this team through a lot of playoff series. So you have to go back, I think, to that era and those players before you can find an analog to what LaMarcus is doing in this series. He has been the heart of Portland's attack. And by the way, credit, again, to his teammates. I mean, Damian Lillard could be pulling a James Harden here. He could be saying, this is the national stage. I got the Adidas commercial. My money is at stake here. You've already made yours. So where's mine? And he's not. He's filling in. He's having great games when necessary. On his off games, he's not getting in the way. And he's basically doing very, very well, particularly for a second-year player. Credit to Nicola Batum, to Wesley Matthews, to everybody for being able to make Aldridge the star while everybody does their part. It shows you something about this team, the way it's set up, the way it's coached, and they're doing really well. And LaMarcus is the heart of all of that.
Well, the Trailblazers will have an opportunity to close this series out. They obviously have this 3-1 series lead Wednesday at, what is it?
6:30.
Is it 6:30?
6:30 Pacific.
All right,
yeah.
6:30 Pacific in Houston. So make sure that you obviously watch the game, pregame, postgame, all the analysis in between. As you all know, keep it locked here on BlazersEdge.com. We're going to have all of that information for you here on the site. And that's going to do it for us here, maybe talking about a team that's moving into the second round next time. Where's the wood to knock on here, Dave? Might be talking about that on our next videocast. You can already see the comments saying that I jinxed it. So anyways, we'll talk to you all in a couple of days here on the Blazers Edge videocast. For Dave Deckard, I'm Sam Tung. Talk to you all soon.